Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Voice of Diary. And this is the chapter 2 of the romantic mortgage scam. If you're directly listening this story, recommend to listen chapter 1 first. So put on your earphones and let's start the story. You are listening the Voice of Diary. I'm 29M, and by the time the lender voided the application and removed the hard inquiries, I thought the worst of it was done. I was wrong. Consequences don't land immediately. They build, quietly, like interest. 3 weeks after I filed the police report, I got a call from a detective assigned to financial crimes. He wasn't dramatic, just direct. We received your identity theft report. We've requested documentation from the lender. There's a digital signature log tied to the submission. IP address, timestamp, device fingerprint. Device fingerprint. That's when I realized something she hadn't considered. Digital mortgage platforms log everything. Location data, browser metadata, sometimes even the device type. The detective asked one question. Did you ever give her written authorization to submit a mortgage application on your behalf? No. Did you electronically sign anything? No. Okay, we'll proceed. Proceed. I hung up and just sat there. I didn't feel victorious. I felt steady. That same evening, she showed up again. This time, she didn't knock. She waited outside my building. I saw her from the lobby camera before I walked out. When I stepped outside, she was pacing. You filed the police report, she said immediately. Yes. You could have just let it go. You forged my signature. She stepped closer. They came to my job. That made sense. Financial crimes detectives often contact suspects for statements once they have documentation. Not an arrest. Not yet. Just fact-finding. They asked about my computer, she continued. About the date. About whether I had access to your information. And I told them it was a misunderstanding. I looked at her. A misunderstanding requires consent. Her voice cracked. You're actually going through with this. You already went through with it. That's when the mask slipped completely. You think you're so perfect, she snapped. Like you've never used someone. I didn't answer. She tried a different angle. You live with me half the week. You use my utilities, my groceries, my time. There was no agreement tying that to a mortgage. You led me to believe we were building something. We were, I said calmly, until you decided to shortcut it. Her eyes narrowed. You know what? Fine. If I go down, I'm not going alone. There it was. The threat. What does that mean? I asked. She folded her arms. I told the detective you knew about the application, that we planned it together, that you backed out because you got cold feet. I held her gaze. That's false. It's my word against yours. Not exactly. I pulled out my phone. You remember the night you asked me to co-sign for your car, and I said no? Her face changed slightly. I keep records, I said. Text messages. Emails. I also have the voicemail from the lender I left the same night stating I did not authorize the application. Time stamped. She went quiet. And the hallway cameras at your building? I continued. They show the broker leaving immediately after I confronted you. Her confidence thinned. And digital signature platforms log IP addresses. If that application came from your apartment Wi-Fi or your device, that's traceable. She didn't respond because she knew. Then she tried something else. You're really willing to give me a criminal record over a house. I didn't raise my voice. You were willing to give me 30 years of debt without consent. Silence stretched between us. Then she said it. If I get charged, I could lose my job, my license. There was again, not remorse. Consequence. I didn't force you to submit it, I said. She started crying again. Loud. Public. A couple walking by slowed down. You're ruining my life, she shouted. I stepped back. No, I'm refusing to let you ruin mine. I walked away. That weekend, her sister posted vague things on social media. Some men can't handle commitment. Be careful who you build dreams with. I didn't respond publicly. Instead, I sent a cease and desist letter through my attorney. Not aggressive, just formal. It stated that any defamatory claims implying joint participation in the mortgage submission would be met with civil action. The post stopped within 24 hours. 2 weeks later, the detective called again. We completed digital analysis. The application was submitted from an IP address registered to her apartment. The electronic signature was executed from a device associated with her email account. We interviewed the broker. He stated he never communicated with you directly prior to submission. I exhaled slowly. What happens next? I asked. We're forwarding the case to the district attorney's office. It's up to them whether to pursue charges. That's how it works. Police investigate. Prosecutors decide. Another week passed. Then she called. This time, her tone was different. Flat. They offer me a deal. Plea negotiation. That happens before a formal trial in many nonviolent financial crimes. What kind of deal? I asked. If I admit to unauthorized use and complete a diversion program, restitution, and probation, it doesn't become a felony conviction. Diversion programs are common for first-time, nonviolent offenders. Supervised probation, financial literacy classes, possibly community service. Completed successfully, and charges can be reduced or dismissed depending on jurisdiction. And I asked, I have to admit I did it without your consent. That's accurate. She let out a slow breath. I thought you'd fold. I almost smiled. I know. You didn't. No. There was a long pause. Then she said something honest for the first time in weeks. I thought if I got the house secured, you'd feel locked in. Like you'd have to stay. There it was. Not love. Strategy. You don't build commitment by trapping someone, I said. I was scared, she whispered. That doesn't justify fraud. She didn't argue this time. The diversion agreement required her to pay administrative fines, complete credit counseling, and avoid further financial misconduct for a set probation period. The case would remain on record, but potentially sealed after successful completion. No prison, no dramatic arrest, but permanent consequence. Her job? She had to disclose the investigation internally. They placed her on probationary review. No immediate termination, but her advancement was stalled. That's how real consequences work. Not explosions. Restrictions. Reputation. Limitations. A week after she signed the agreement, she texted me one final message. I never meant for it to go this far. I replied once. It went as far as your choices took it. She didn't respond. And that should have been the end. But there was one last thing I hadn't done. Not revenge. Closure. And that part was the most satisfying of all. By the time she signed the diversion agreement, most people thought I'd won. They were wrong. Winning isn't watching someone face consequences. Winning is making sure they can never try it again. 3 days after she finalized her agreement, I got a notification from my bank's internal compliance team. The case had been closed. My record was clear. No internal flags. No reputational impact. Clean. But I wasn't done. Because during the investigation, something else surfaced. The lender's fraud department had sent me a courtesy copy of their internal findings. Buried in the report was a note from the broker's initial intake call with her. Borrower states co-borrower is aware and prefers not to attend initial meeting. That line bothered me. It meant she didn't just forge a signature. She created a narrative. She positioned me as silent approval. That wasn't panic. That was planning. And planning deserves a response. I scheduled one final meeting. Public place. Daytime. I wasn't angry. I wasn't emotional. Just finished. She looked smaller when she walked in. Not physically. Just diminished. Probation does that. Internal job review does that. Mandatory financial counseling does that. You said you wanted closure, she said. I do. She sat across from me. I signed the agreement, she continued. I admitted it was unauthorized. I know. So what else do you want? Accountability, but not the kind she expected. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of the full mortgage submission package, the digital signature logs, the police report, the diversion agreement summary, a notarized affidavit from me formally revoking any authorization for her to access or use my personal information now or in the future. She looked confused. I'm not suing you, I said calmly. I'm not escalating this further. But this folder is being stored with my attorney and digitally archived. Her expression tightened. For what? In case you ever try to rewrite this story. Silence. You really think I'd do that? She asked. I think you already did. She looked away. I continued. I also placed extended fraud monitoring on my credit. 7-year alert. Any attempt to open credit in my name requires direct verification with me. Her jaw moved slightly, and I've removed every shared digital access point. Streaming accounts, cloud storage, password resets, everything. She nodded slowly. You don't trust me at all. No, that was the cleanest word I'd ever said to her. She swallowed. You could have just broken up with me, she said quietly. I did. She shook her head. No, you dismantled me. There was again. Victim framing. You dismantled yourself, I replied. I just refused to be collateral. She sat there for a long moment. Then she asked the question that finally mattered. Did you ever actually see a future with me? Yes, I said honestly, until you try to secure it by force. Her eyes filled. Not dramatic this time, just real. I thought if I locked the house down, you'd feel obligated. I thought once we had it, you wouldn't leave. You don't trap someone into staying, I said. If they want to stay, they stay. That hit harder than anything else I'd said. She nodded slowly. I guess I didn't think you'd fight back. I know, and that was the entire point. She had spent 2 years slowly testing boundaries. Small things. Using my card and paying me back later. Putting small bills in my name temporarily. Applying pressure in public so I wouldn't say no. Each time, I corrected it calmly. But this time, she escalated too far. And I escalated properly. No screaming. No threats. Just systems. Before we stood up to leave, I gave her one final piece of truth. If you had asked, and we had planned this together, I would have considered it. She looked up. But the second you decided to corner me into a 30-year obligation, you showed me who you are. She didn't argue. Because she couldn't. We walked out separately. That was the last time I saw her. A month later, I heard through mutual friends that she completed the first stage of her financial counseling. Her promotion was delayed indefinitely. She was rebuilding her credit the hard way, the way she should have done it from the start. And me? My credit score rebounded. My career stayed intact. And the quiet reputation that matters most, self-respect, stayed untouched. The real revenge wasn't legal action. It was refusing to bend. It was proving that pressure doesn't equal power. It was showing her that manipulation collapses when someone stands still. Some people think love means merging everything immediately. It doesn't. Love without consent is control. And control without integrity always breaks. If this story hit a little too close to home, stick around. About more birthdays that didn't go as planned. Subscribe before someone tries to co-sign your future without asking.